Dr. Mike LeNoir, and this is the Wellness Watch. Welcome to today's edition of the Wellness Watch. I'm your host, Dr. Mike LeNoir. Today we're going to talk about a number of subjects. First, we're going to update you on COVID, because we should. Then we're going to talk about the impact of the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade and what that means to women of color. We're going to have a special from our youth reporter, Zoe, and a discussion on something that I thought I knew everything about, milk. Well, this is plant-based milk with our nutrition expert, Andrea Bull. And finally, it's basketball season. Go Warriors. But we're going to talk to Brian Shaw. He currently is a coach with the Los Angeles Clippers, but he's coached with the Los Angeles Lakers, and he's been the coach of the Denver Nuggets. He's going to talk to you about some of the things you should be concerned about when you put your children in sports. It's basketball season. Let's get started. Well, we're going to find out something different today. So first, let's talk a bit about COVID last week. Tragedy. It was released a figure that 1 million people have died from COVID infections. Many of those lives could have been saved if they've been vaccinated or even boosted. I think what I'm seeing in my own environment is a lot of you are kind of relaxing. I mean, you believe that this pandemic is over. Like, if you believe that, you're getting the wrong information. I see you've given up your mask, you're not social distancing, you're going to concerts and ballparks and places where a lot of people are not immunized, and probably many people have the disease. We do know that vaccination and boosting protects you not against getting the infection, but does protect you against a serious illness and death. And so consequently for me, that seems to be enough. We still have to deal with the issue of variants. We started with the original virus, and then we went to the Delta variant. Now we're with the Omicron variant, and it's got numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Each one of these variants is more infectious than the first, but fortunately, the Omicron variant doesn't cause as many clinical problems as other variants do. And so consequently, I think for right now, many of you are feeling safe because you got the infection, didn't get that sick, and you're rolling on. A couple of things wrong with that. There will be more variants. That's the first thing. And the vaccines are likely to protect you against those as well. Secondly, there's something called long haulers disease. We've talked about it before, that about 1/3 of the people who get the infection ultimately develop either brain fog or cardiac problems or pulmonary problems. And so getting the virus and just having it be cool that you're not sick is insufficient. So I think that it's still our message to not only get vaccinated and get boosted as recommended by the CDC, but keep that mask on and keep your social distance where you don't have to. And don't put yourself in an area where you might be around super spreaders, because you're likely to get infected even though you may be vaccinated. And remember again, being vaccinated doesn't protect you from getting infected. It does protect you from serious illness, and it does protect you from death. On the other part of the COVID front, last week Moderna asked for the permission to give their vaccine to children down to the age of 2. And I know when you said, oh, my baby, I'm not giving my baby that vaccine. Well, your baby's already had 14 different vaccines. And let me tell you, as an old school pediatrician, that those vaccines have made a tremendous difference in how well our children do with these various illnesses. And a COVID vaccine, while it may not keep the child from getting infected, will keep them from getting serious illnesses, and perhaps will even keep them from keep the virus from spreading throughout your family to more vulnerable members. So don't necessarily be afraid. Here's my concern. Here's what I don't understand. You've had these children for all these years. Some of you have had grandchildren as well. You depended upon some primary care provider to take care of these children. So if you've got questions about the vaccine, why would you get information from the internet, even from me? Talk to your own primary care provider. The one that's been taking care of your children, had your back for all these years. They're the one most likely to give you the reliable information that you need to make decisions about vaccines. So let's move on. Last week, the Supreme Court released prematurely. Somebody in the back room stole the report and presented it to the news media that they intend to reverse Roe versus Wade, a woman's right to choose. Now, I go back to the days when there were back alley abortions, and maybe we'll talk about that if they have time. Many women died from illegal abortions or even from legal abortions that were done under suspicious circumstances. So this ruling has tremendous implication for women. Protected at that level, I'm good, and probably you should be as well. To discuss this problem today, we have Dr. Glenda Newell Harris as our guest. She's a former executive for Planned Parenthood. Dr. Harris, these restrictive abortion laws, which we have been talking about, take us back to an era well before Roe versus Wade. Tell us what you feel the implication of these laws will be.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. LeNoir, for having me on your program again. You know, any threat or any change to Roe versus Wade is an attack on women, and in particularly attack on women of color. Anytime we begin to start tampering with reproductive health rights, we're really getting into very personal areas where women ought to be able to make their own choices about their own bodies. And in particular, as it relates to when they want to have children and how often they want to have children and how they want to space their children. So when these rights are being addressed as they are in a very restrictive manner, it has an incredible impact on all women and in particular women of color. You might ask why. Well, any state that will want to mandate a restriction to abortion anytime after 6 weeks really honestly just doesn't make a lot of sense. It's not created to be friendly or simple for us as women. First of all, many women don't even know that they're pregnant until they are 6 weeks pregnant. Many women have irregular menses. And as a result of irregular menses, it makes it sometimes very, very difficult to be able to know when you are pregnant. And then let's take a look at some of the additional challenges that women of color face as it relates to, let's just say, unemployment, where the national average of unemployment is around 5%. For African Americans, it's over 8%. And why would I want to talk about employment? Well, employment often will bring you health insurance. And when you have health insurance, then you actually have an opportunity to have access to health care. So if I have no health insurance, well, first of all, if I have no job, I'm going to have a difficult time being able to go into Walgreens or CVS or any pharmacy and purchase a pregnancy test to even find out that I'm pregnant. So the ability to be able to go and purchase it. Then if you don't have a job, then you likely don't have health insurance. So without health insurance, you're not able to go in to see a provider and get a pregnancy test. So sometimes, people just get busy. They may miss periods because of menstrual irregularities. And by the time they find out, they may be much further along than 6 weeks.
And what about the desperation of saying, I got to have an abortion, and you're in a state where that's not available? What are some of the bigger problems as a result of that?
Yeah, well, that presents another set of problems. So I'm in state X where I cannot get access to that kind of care. And then I'm forced to be able to travel across the border. Well, that takes money. You have to be able to have money to travel. And then when you move into the other state, you may need to spend the night. So where do you stay? You have to have money for a hotel. And then you have to have money for the procedure. It's just not a situation that is set up to really allow women to take their own responsibility for their own health care, to have the government making decisions about when and how women want to be able to manage their own reproductive health care. It's really interesting, Dr. LeNoir. I've not seen any literature to support that the government has helped to make decisions about how erectile dysfunction has been managed in this country. That's a decision that men are able to make.
Wait a minute.
Between themselves and their urologist.
Right.
And you know what? It really needs to be. It's a personal matter. And while it's a personal matter for males, it should be a personal matter for women as well.
Do you think this is going to drive us back to the days when women had illegal abortions with subsequent possibilities of endometritis and consequences of those?
I do believe that these laws, the changes of the laws, are going to drive us back to what we used to hear about called back alley abortions. And not only will it lead to infections in the gynecological area, but many people were died as a result of these procedures that were done that were not under controlled or sterile circumstances. Desperate people do desperate things. And when you are faced with those types of situations, and you've got laws that are preventing you from getting the kind of health care that you need, then you do desperate things. And we find ourselves, sometimes women were losing lives and may lose lives behind this.
One final question. What do you think we can do about this now? I mean, obviously these laws are passed. Looking at the makeup of the Supreme Court, doesn't look like many friends there. What do you think people can be doing?
Well, that's a great question, Dr. LeNoir. I really do think that women across party lines, and this is an area where I think, we've heard a lot for the last several days about bipartisan. This is an area where I think that we need to really, as women, come together. Women are the ones that make decisions about healthcare, but it's interesting. The laws are decided often in the government where we may not always be in the majority. So I say that women need to come together and organize, because I believe when women organize and they are focused, that we can make things happen. But we're going to have to march. We're going to have to demonstrate. You're going to have to talk to your congressional people. You're going to have to talk to your senators. And then some of the laws around some of these changes with abortion are really even sort of unconscionable. They want to find the person that drives you to the medical clinic, or the doctor that may be close within the office.
Or if you're raped, your cousin can prevent you from getting an abortion in some of these states.
Absolutely.
I think this is just headed in obviously the wrong direction. And it is up to women to organize to prevent this. Dr. Glenda Newell-Harris, thank you for taking the time. Thank you so much, Dr. Harris, for taking the time to talk about that. I can say I go back to the day when illegal abortion resulted in the deaths of many women, disproportionately women of color. More importantly, I think it opens the gateway for a number of other issues that the Supreme Court wants to deal with, to take away some of the secret, intimate issues that you have been deciding for yourself. Gay marriage is one of those issues, same-sex marriage, gender issues, gender identification, and who knows where they intend to go. So I believe in stopping it at the bridge. But once you let them cross that bridge, you don't know what's going to happen. And thanks, Dr. Harris, for making this plain. Now let's get an intergenerational, younger perspective on health with our feature from Zoe.
Hey y'all, I got a question. What's one of the leading causes for death amongst Black people ages 18 to 49? According to the CDC, heart disease. We're also twice as likely to die from it than white people. And ages 35 to 64, you're also twice as likely to have high blood pressure than white people. So, if you and your family want to lower risk, here's some options. Eat fresh, healthy foods, and exercise as much as possible. Heart disease tends to occur when there's a buildup of plaque in the arteries or a buildup of fat around the heart. So, eating better and exercise regularly can help get rid of that buildup or prevent the buildup from happening in the first place. Talk to your doctor about it, get some blood work done to find out. That way you can know sooner rather than later.
Today we're going to talk about plant-based milk. There are milks made from nuts and grains, and even milk made from a bean. So let's talk about their nutritional value. Plant-based milk is perfect for people with slow digestive systems. Yes, they are low in protein, but they are also low in saturated fat and calories. They are lactose and cholesterol free, chock full of fiber, and provide many of their plants vitamins and minerals. Almond milk is one of the most popular. It is a low carb, low calorie, magnesium rich, controls blood sugar levels, drink. It's high in antioxidants like vitamin E, known to lower dementia risk, and a good source of healthy fats. An 8-ounce glass is 41 calories. Oat milk is a good alternative for those allergic to nuts and soy. However, it is high in carbs and calories. Its soluble fiber imparts a creamy quality and slows digestion, contributing to a feeling of fullness, which helps stabilize blood sugar levels. An 8-ounce glass is 120 calories. Cashew milk is high in vitamin E, iron, zinc, copper, phosphorus, and manganese. It is creamy and has no natural sugars, which means no blood sugar spikes. An 8-ounce glass of homemade is 71 calories. Soy milk is bean-based milk. It tastes the closest to cow's milk, but without the fat. And unlike others, it's a good source of a complete plant-based protein. Soy milk contains omega-3 fatty acids, the healthy fat our body cannot make independently. Omega-3s are known to help lower the risk of dementia and Alzheimer's. Claims that soy amplifies and increases the risk of breast cancer have been disproven. An 8-ounce glass is 80 calories. For more information on plant-based milks, check out our website at healthyhealingeats.com. Thanks for stopping by today. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you next time on Living Well.
Hey, thanks, Zoe, for that report. We look forward to your reports every week. Now we're going to talk about nutrition. We're going to talk with our nutrition editor, Sandra Bro. She's just going to talk about something that I really have very little information on. I feel kind of guilty that I've gone through life without knowing about plant-based milks. Thank you, Andrea, for that report. I'm going to try some of these plant-based milks just to see how they compare with what I've been drinking. And I hope the audience, I hope you take advantage of that and see the value of that as well. You know, it's basketball season, so I thought it might be a good idea to throw in an interview we did with former Laker coach, former Denver coach, present Clipper coach, Mr. Brian Shaw. What should you expect? What are the things you expect your children to learn from sports and from the beginning? I mean, what are the dynamics that sports bring to the development of a child, say who's in elementary school or just getting started?
Well, I think the element of hard work, and I think that translates across the board in not just sports, but in everything else. We have a saying: when you pay your dues pay you back, right? And so when you put your work in, it'll show. And if you don't put your work in, that'll show as well. So one is hard work. One is the development of a certain mentality that it takes to not just play sports, but to compete at the highest level and be the best player that you could possibly be. And so developing that mentality, which includes hard work, and what comes from hard work is a critical part of it, as well. And then, as I mentioned earlier, if it's a team sport, just learning how to work together as a team, how to do whatever role it is that you play on that team, do that role the best. In basketball, there's only 5 players on the court, and there's only one basketball. So everybody would love to have the ball in their hand all the time, but you can't. So one person, usually the point guard, or just like in football, if it's the quarterback, has the ball, and then everybody else has a specific role that they have to play. And so I feel as a coach that it's more important to, everybody for the most part can play when they have the ball in their hand, but it's more important that 80%, if all things being equal in basketball with one ball and 5 players, you have the ball 20% of the time, the other 80% of the time you don't. So it's as important or more important to learn how to do what you need to do that other 80% of the time when you don't have the ball in your hand. And so playing from a young age, these are some of the things that you start to learn how to do. And then when you get to old enough to recognize and be able to make a comparison, then now you can say, oh, okay, I'm sitting in the classroom and the grades are on the curve. So I know that I have to put in my work and study this well enough so that I get the best grade so that I'm not down here and I'm not getting left behind. And a lot of things that happen in sports, like I said, translates to every other aspect of life. It's just a subset of what goes on in society, and it's a good teacher in preparing you for what that is.
So I think it sounds like what he's saying is discipline, overcoming adversity, working together, and being able to push through and find and push your limits out further, right? So we know that coaches are going to push you, sports are going to push you, and you understand, hey, I'm not going to quit at this point because I've been pushed farther than that. I've been pushed harder than that. So I know my limit is further out. And so therefore I can take on more things and I can take on more challenges because I've been prepared for that through the medium of sports.
Yeah. And it's not just, and if you're not a person that is willing to work together with a team and play a specific role, then there's individual sports. There's tennis, right. There's golf, and things of that nature that you can do if you just want to only count on yourself and the amount of work. Because when you're with a team, the team is only as strong as its weakest link. So right. If you're not pulling your weight, that's going to show. And usually you don't want to let your teammates down, right? So you put in your but if you are a slacker and whatever else, or you just don't work well with teammates, then you should take up an individual sport, and then you'll find out if you're really cut out for that or not. Because if you're not putting in the work, you're not going to excel and win anything.
What about the elephant in the room? That's injuries to younger children and adolescents, and that pretty much knocked them out of the whole process of athletic development.
Yeah, so I believe strongly in the fact that I'm 55, and when I was coming up, from the ages of, I probably started playing team sports at 8 years old when I was in the 4th grade, and but we played basketball during basketball season. Then we played football during football season. We played baseball during baseball season. But we didn't play all year round, one particular sport all year round. And so now I think that the injuries and things that we're seeing, especially in younger people, is because the sports that they're playing now are year round. When they finish basketball season, then AAU season starts, right? And that goes all the way through the summer. They have club sports that continue to go. And so you don't allow, especially while your muscles and everything is still growing, you don't allow them any rest, right? Yeah. And so when we stop playing basketball, your basketball muscles that you use stopped. And then you use a different set of muscles when you're playing baseball and a different set of muscles when you're playing football. And so in each of those seasons, even though you're still competing and playing sports, you're still allowing those other joints and things to rest. Now we're seeing, like I said, kids playing a sport all year round. And can you imagine if you're playing baseball, which is typically in the springtime and goes into the summer, and then you play winter ball, and you're playing in the winter time, and you're a pitcher as a young kid, and you're throwing curveballs at an early age, and you're doing it all year round. You're just like anything else, like a tire, it only has so much tread on it, right? And so once you wear it down, you can't put that tread back on the tire. And so that's what I think that we're seeing. Everybody's tread is being worn down at a really, really young age. And even though we have advancements in technology and things of that nature to help build muscle and maintain what you have and to help prevent injury, there's still only so much wear and tear that it can take. And so even the great Kobe Bryant, who I had the privilege of playing with and coaching, he played for 20 years as a guard. That's really, really tough to do. But you start to see guys slow down because, like I said, there's only so much tread on the tire. And so what you see professionally, they've also had to go through. They had practices every single day in college and high school and all the way down. And so as the years start to add up, everything else starts to tear down. And so we have to monitor that a lot more closely, especially with young kids, in terms of not letting them play one sport all year round.
Yeah, I think, and with us having better, more information now as parents, we think we got to do a better job of teaching our kids how to care for their bodies, right? And so, eating right, getting the proper amount of rest, all of those things come into play. And there is challenges because my son plays 2 sports. He at one point he played 4, but to your point, we couldn't get the season, and the coaches be like, well, he's got to go to football. He's got to do this, and I was like, I'm going to try to keep him play multiple sports as much as possible for that reason, just to give his body a chance to rest. And each sport has a different kind of plus to it, right? You learn something different in football than you do in baseball or than you do in basketball. So all of those lessons and that overall body training, I think it helps him. But we do have a good question. This is from Shauna. She's saying, as a parent, what should you do if you believe a coach doesn't have what it takes to effectively coach a team? For example, if you're paying significant money for your child to play club volleyball, but determine that the coach may be over their head, how do you navigate that situation?
I think that's a good question. And I think you have to operate based on how you feel, about that situation. And if you recognize that, you can have a conversation with the coach. If you know enough about the sport, you can pull your child from that. You can do individual training with somebody who is qualified, who does have the pedigree, based on their past and and like I said, and that's why I think there's a need to have a certain certification program for our coaches here in the States, because the question that she asked is common, and it happens more so than we need it to happen, and there are a lot of coaches that are over their head. And I think that I know, just like, I didn't go to a coach's clinic until I was, till probably 10 years ago. And the very first one that I went to, ironically enough, happened to be at the Clippers practice facility. And Phil Jackson and Pat Riley and Doc Rivers and Mike Brown and Mike D'Antoni, some of the top coaches that were in the game, actually came together in this clinic, and they shared ideas and their philosophies and what have you. And I think that you always have to be willing to have a beginner's brain and be willing to learn, even when you are considered, like Phil Jackson was considered the Zen master, right? But he still participated in the coaches clinics, because everybody has different ways of doing things and what have you. And a teacher learns as much from a student, or a coach learns as much from a player as a player learns from a coach. And so, the certification thing is one, but I think that as a parent, if you recognize that this coach is over their head, maybe you do some research into another program or another coach that has a stellar reputation, because it is your child, and you always want to do what's best for your child. And and it's a tough situation, because the other thing that you don't want to do is allow. I mean, I think it's just like if you go to a school and your child is advanced and they're not being challenged in the classroom, right? Then you can either play them up in sports to the next age group up, or in school. I skipped a grade, so I went to first grade for like the first month of school, and then my teacher recognized something in me, had a conference with my parents, and then moved me up into the second grade after a month, because what I was learning in the first grade wasn't challenging me to that point. And so, things of that nature, where if you think the coach is over his head, you may want to, like I said, move to a different program. And that's different than moving to a different program because this coach isn't playing your kid, or, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because there's some parents out there that team hop because their kid, they don't feel like their kid is getting enough playing time, or their child's not getting showcased, even though they're on the court, they're not getting showcased enough, they're not getting enough shots. And so you don't want to run the risk of looking like a team hopper, but you do want to make sure that your child is getting developed and progressing in their sports at their level. Right. So they may not be progressing at the level of the best players, but if they're progressing at their level, then you might be in a good situation.
Thank you, Brian. And I know a lot of you don't live in the Bay Area, but from the Bay Area, go Warriors. Well, that's all the time we have for today's edition of the Welcome Watch. Thank you for joining us. We'll be here every week, sponsored by the African American Wellness Project and BlackDoctor.org. As I always say, and I think it's very important, health is your biggest asset, so protect it. I'm Dr. Mike LeNoir. We'll talk again next week.